Good evening, and welcome back. There are moments in economic history that look ordinary when they happen. What happened in Washington this week was far more significant. When U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer told Congress that America was at the end of its rope with Canada, he wasn't simply expressing frustration. He was delivering a warning. And more importantly, he was revealing how Washington increasingly views its relationship with Ottawa. For decades, Canada occupied a unique position in American strategic thinking. Not quite a foreign competitor, not quite a domestic economic partner. Something in between. A trusted neighbor, a reliable ally, a predictable trading partner. Today, that perception appears to be changing, and that should concern anyone who understands how important the Canada-US relationship is to the North American economy. Because once a country stops seeing you as a partner and starts seeing you as an obstacle, negotiations become exponentially more difficult. That is exactly what appears to be happening. Let's be brutally honest. The economic impact of American alcohol being removed from Canadian shelves is real, but it is not the central issue. The central issue is leverage. Washington wants Canada to remove the boycott. Ottawa wants Washington to remove tariffs. Neither side wants to move first, and neither side believes it should move first. That is why this dispute has become frozen. From the American perspective, Canada is maintaining a retaliatory measure that hurts American businesses. From the Canadian perspective, those retaliatory measures only exist because Washington launched the tariff campaign first. Both arguments contain truth, and that is precisely why neither side has been able to force a breakthrough. Many commentators are interpreting Mark Carney's response as political resistance. I think that's a mistake. This is not primarily political. It is strategic. Carney is looking at a simple reality. Canada has lost more than 51,000 manufacturing jobs. Ontario's industrial base is under pressure. Investment confidence is weakening. Major sectors, including automotive manufacturing, steel production, aluminum processing, and forestry, are facing significant uncertainty. When leaders see numbers like that, they typically have two choices. The first option is accommodation. Try to satisfy the larger partner, reduce tensions, hope the relationship returns to normal. The second option is diversification. Reduce vulnerability, create alternatives, expand economic relationships elsewhere. Everything Carney has done since entering office suggests he has chosen the second path. That is the critical development investors should be watching. Because this isn't merely about winning a negotiation. It's about reducing Canada's dependence on the outcome of that negotiation, and those are two very different objectives. From Washington's perspective, Canada is supposed to be feeling pressure. Tariffs create leverage. Leverage creates concessions. Concessions create negotiating victories. That is how economic pressure is intended to work. But Canada's response has not followed that script. Instead of becoming more dependent on the United States, Ottawa has spent the last several months actively pursuing new relationships around the world. Trade agreements, security partnerships, market diversification, outreach to Asia, outreach to Europe, outreach to emerging economies. The more successful Canada becomes in that effort, the less effective American economic pressure becomes. And that is likely one reason the rhetoric from Washington has become increasingly sharp. Because leverage loses value when the target develops alternatives. This may be the most important point in the entire story. Jameson Greer stated that Canada's economic model does not fit with what the United States is trying to achieve. That statement deserves far more attention than it has received, because it reveals that this dispute is no longer about a specific tariff. It is no longer about a specific product. It is no longer about a specific trade disagreement. It is becoming a conflict between two competing visions of economic strategy. The United States increasingly favors economic nationalism, more domestic production, more trade barriers, more protection for strategic industries, more pressure on trading partners. Canada, meanwhile, is moving toward diversification. More trade partners, more global integration, more international cooperation, more supply chain flexibility. Neither strategy is inherently right or wrong. but they are fundamentally different. And when two deeply integrated economies begin pursuing fundamentally different strategies, friction becomes inevitable. The July 1st deadline changes everything. Deadlines have a way of exposing reality. Politicians can delay difficult decisions. Markets cannot. Businesses cannot. Investors cannot. The closer the July 1st deadline approaches, the more expensive uncertainty becomes. Companies delay investments. Manufacturers postpone expansion. Employers hesitate to hire. Capital waits on the sidelines. This is the hidden cost of trade disputes. Not tariffs, not press conferences, not political speeches. Uncertainty. And uncertainty is already beginning to affect long-term decision-making across North America. The bigger question. The question isn't whether Canada will eventually restore American alcohol to store shelves. The question isn't whether some tariffs will eventually be reduced. Those issues will likely be resolved eventually. The bigger question is whether trust can be restored, because trade agreements are built on more than economics. They are built on predictability, and predictability is becoming increasingly scarce. What we're witnessing may not be the collapse of the Canada-US relationship, but it may be the end of the version of that relationship that existed for the past 30 years. A relationship based on the assumption that economic integration automatically guarantees political stability. That assumption is now being tested. And neither Ottawa nor Washington appears ready to back down, which means this story is no longer about trade. It is about power. It is about leverage. It is about economic sovereignty. And most importantly, it is about who will shape the future of North America in an era where old assumptions no longer apply.